Ronald Acuna Jr. is one of the more fascinating players in the game today. First of all, he has one of the most elite skill sets at the plate in both an advanced capacity, with a savant page that has deep red in all the most important areas, and a raw numbers one, with a career slash line of 289, 384, 524, coming out to an OPS plus of 141 through his age 27 season. Mind you, in this time, he's also averaged 37 home runs and 41 stolen bases per 162 games played. However, there are two major aspects of his game that have been objectively poor in recent years, and in this video, I want to show you how they're truly interconnected. These are his health and his fielding. Since 2021, when he sustained his first year-ending knee injury, he has only played an average of 101 games per season, missing at least 40 contests every year but one. But this doesn't inherently explain the correlation with his fielding. Let me start here. Prior to coming back from that injury in 2022, Acuna had posted 5 outs above average in his first 4 seasons. This had him grading out as average to slightly above metrically. And when you throw in the fact that his arm during this time was certifiably elite, he ended up recording 10 fielding runs cumulatively. This was actually in the upper half of the league. While he more than likely was never going to win a Gold Glove or anything, he was able to do enough consistently to register value totals that weren't hampered by his work with the mitt. But all of that changed upon his return from that major injury. Since the start of 2022, he has ranked 5th worst in the entire sport in outs above average, with negative 28, just ahead of guys like Kyle Schwarber, Nick Castellanos, and Juan Soto, all of whom have been known for being defensively limited their entire careers. But it actually gets even worse. In runs prevented, he's been 4th worst, and in the success rate added, which basically aims to quantify a player's efficiency, he's been tied for 2nd worst, behind only Schwarber. And in 2025, he hit an absolute rock bottom, posting a career worst negative 11 OAA despite playing far less games than in both 2022 and 2023, when he had the next worst at negative 7. I'm going to attempt to show you why with some plays before moving on with the analysis, beginning with 6 separate instances where he had to come in. Now, what's one thing you notice about every single one of these? If you said bad jumps, you'd be correct, but the thing is, he's never really gotten good jumps in his career. But before, he used to make up for that with elite speed and a real hustle to the ball. Now he seems unwilling to make those 50-50 maneuvers, whether it's a snow cone attempt, slide, or outright dive. I'm not saying you can blame him for this, by the way. I totally understand not being willing to put his health on the line again. And I'm sure if you ask the Braves themselves, they probably would prefer him to play this way, but you can't argue that it is ruining his performance on the advanced front. What also doesn't help is the fact that he's not the most solid fundamentally either. Here's 3 separate times he committed a cardinal mistake you don't want to see an outfielder make at any point. The first one being the classic getting in between on a line drive, which causes you to miss the short hop. The second one featuring him attempting to cut off a ball in the gap with a bare hand despite having a worse angle on it. And the third one being getting too close to the wall on a hard hit ball off of it, allowing it to skip past him and the runner to make his way to third. If he's going to play so conservatively on balls he has a chance at, he's got to make sure not to needlessly hurt his team on ones he really doesn't. But it's not as simple as saying he's just a terrible fielder now because he's not playing as dynamic anymore. First of all, he's still pretty much average when it comes to going back on balls, as it seems like he's much more comfortable leaping than he is diving, leading to him only having negative 3 outs above average in this capacity combined since 2022. And then secondly, his arm actually does a decent job to make up for some of the value he gives up with his glove. Over that same time period I previously laid out, he's also put up 9 fielding runs with his arm, a total tied for 4th best in the entire sport, registering some pretty crazy highlights along the way, including this one versus the Yankees last year when he made a catch deep in the outfield corner, spun and then threw a perfect strike to third base. One so unlikely, the runner there didn't even think there'd be a play, allowing him to be easily tagged out. I'm making this video basically to say that while Acuna is still arguably one of the worst outfielders in the entire sport, people shouldn't assume it's because of a lack of talent, with it more so being done out of a sense of self-preservation at this point, which I personally think is a fair trade-off if it manages to keep him healthy in 2026 and beyond, as the dude is a near certain Hall of Fame talent if he can just manage to stay on the field for roughly around 120 games a year for the next decade.
Alright everybody, if you made it this far, I appreciate you watching, and if you did, consider checking out any of these other videos on your screen right now for other content just like this. Also, if you ever see anything you'd like to see me detail in the video, feel free to reach out to my email, basebpoet@gmail.com, and if I end up using your idea, I'll give you a shout out. Thanks for watching, have a great rest of your day.